George was in the garden when Catboy from PJ Masks showed up. And he said, "George, I heard you have an emergency, so I got here as quick as I could." And George replied, "Yeah, I gotta go poo really badly." "Oh," said Catboy, "then why don't you just go into your house and use the bathroom?" "Well," said George, "every time I try to walk, it feels like I'm gonna poo my pants. So I'm stuck out here and I can't make it to the toilet." "Oh, I see," said Catboy. "Well, maybe I can call one of my friends to help you." And a short time later, Gekko showed up. And Gekko said, "George, I hear you have a really big potty problem. Well, maybe I can help you." "Yeah," said George. "I've been holding in my poo for so long, it feels like I'm gonna poo my pants. I can't even walk to the toilet right now." "Okay, George, just try to hold on a little longer, okay? If you can't make it to the toilet, maybe I can bring the toilet to you." And then Gekko went inside the house. Gekko entered the bathroom, and when he saw the toilet, he thought, "This thing looks pretty heavy. I'll have to use my super strength to lift it up and bring it back to George." Gekko quickly got the toilet and pushed it back to George, who was still waiting in the garden. "All right, George," said Gekko, "here's the toilet you wanted. I hope you haven't pooped your pants yet." Then he got onto the toilet, and Catboy said, "All right, George, it's time to take your giant poo." George started to poo, but a lot of farts came out because he had been holding it in for so long. The more he pooed, the more George farted, until he was surrounded by a thick and stinky fart cloud. "This fart cloud," said George. "I can barely breathe, and I can't even see what's going on." Then Catboy said, "Hold on, George, I think one of my other friends can help you." And a short time later, Owlette showed up, and Catboy said, "Thanks for coming, Owlette. George has a really stinky fart cloud that's giving him problems." "Yeah," said Owlette. "We should try getting rid of this fart cloud so George can finish taking his poo. And maybe I can use my super strength wings." So Owlette flapped her wings to blow away the fart cloud. And after a while, George could see again. "Thanks, Owlette," said George. "But I have another problem. I don't have any toilet paper." "I can take care of that," said Catboy. "Just hold on for a sec, George. I'll be right back." Then Catboy left the house. Catboy ran into the bathroom, and he said, "All right, I need to get George a whole bunch of toilet paper." So he went to the toilet roll and began to collect a really long piece of toilet paper. And then he quickly returned to the garden. "Here you go, George," said Catboy. "This is the biggest piece I could carry at super speed." So George took the toilet paper and began to wipe his bum. After he was done, they all took a look at the toilet. And Catboy said, "Wow, George, that's a lot of poo. I guess you really had to go." Then Gekko and Owlette said, "Use the toilet when you feel like you have to, and don't hold it in for so long. This way you'll avoid having emergencies." So George gave the toilet a big flush. And then he thanked the PJ Masks for coming to his rescue. So what do you guys think? Do you want to see more PJ Masks episodes? Let me know in the comments below, and keep watching Lemon Pie Land. It was the early morning, and Peppa and George were still sleeping. Then Peppa opened up her eyes and thought, "There's something strange going on in the bedroom." So she got out of bed and noticed that there was a really bad smell in the bedroom. It was so stinky, she began to cough. And then Peppa went to wake up George. And she said, "George, you have to get out of bed. There's a really bad smell in here." George was still really sleepy, but he finally managed to say, "Peppa, what's the problem? I don't smell anything wrong. But you know, sometimes during the night, my toy dinosaur, he farts a lot. He can't help it, so I just choose to ignore it, and it really doesn't bother me that much." And with that said, George left the bedroom. Later on in the kitchen, George was eating breakfast, a delicious cherry pie. Then Daddy Pig came along, and he said, "Good morning, George. I see you're eating breakfast. An entire cherry pie?" "Yeah," said George. "I just eat what I want these days, and it seems to be working out for me." Then Daddy Pig started to cough, and he said, "There's a really bad smell in the kitchen." And George replied, "Maybe it's coming from the fridge. There might be old food in there." And then he thought, "Oh no, it's happening again." So George got off his seat and quickly left the kitchen. Later on, George was doing something with the laundry machine when Mummy Pig showed up. "George, are you doing laundry today? That's kind of strange." And George replied, "Yeah, I just had to put something really dirty inside. That's all." "Oh," said Mummy Pig. "Well, can I take a look?" Maybe you shouldn't," said George. "It might be a little stinky." But Mummy Pig knew that something strange was going on. So she opened up the washing machine door. And that's when a really bad smell came out. While Mummy Pig started to cough, George thought, "Oh no, it's happening again." Then he quickly left the laundry room. When he got outside, George thought, "Finally, I'm by myself and nobody will bother me." And then he let out a tremendous fart. And then a few more. But then, somebody caught him with a spider web. And that's when the amazing Spider-Man showed up. And he said, "Finally, I caught the guy who was farting everywhere." "It was you, George." And George replied, "I can't help it, and I don't think it really bothers anyone." "Really?" said Spider-Man. "Your farts just killed all of Mummy Pig's flowers." "Well, I eat cherry pie for breakfast, lunch, and dinner now," said George. "And that's just what happens. I get really powerful farts." "With great power comes great responsibility," said Spider-Man. But George replied, "You can't stop me. My farts are even stronger than your superpowers." "We'll see about that," said Spider-Man. "Prepare for battle." And then George and Spider-Man began to fight. "Ah," said Spider-Man. "My web shots are useless against your farts. And this suit does nothing to protect me from that awful smell." Then George said, "You'd better give up now, Spider-Man. My farts are just too powerful for you." And then Peppa showed up in her Elsa costume. And she said, "George, your farts are causing a lot of problems today. You really gotta stop it." And George replied, "There's no way you can stop me. I already beat Spider-Man." So George lined up another fart attack. But that's when Peppa used her ice magic to freeze George's bum. What did you do to my bum?" said George. "It feels really cold." "I froze it because you're using your farts to fight people." "George," said Spider-Man, "you gotta be more careful when you're letting off your farts. Try to eat a little better and let your farts out when nobody's around." "Okay," said George. "I won't use my farts anymore to fight people, and I'll try to let them out in the bathroom. Now, will my bum go back to normal? It feels like there's a bunch of ice back there." And Peppa said, "It's a hot day, so it should melt in a few hours, and that'll give you some time to think about what you did." So Peppa and Spider-Man tried to fix Mummy Pig's garden, while George patiently waited for his bum to melt. So, what do you guys think? Are George's farts a superpower? Or are they just a stinky problem? Let me know in the comments below what you think, and you just might see it in a future episode.